I will call the public safety meeting on January 16th, 2024 to order. Roll call, please.
Cameron,
Here.
Randy,
Here.
Candace,
Here.
Tammy,
Here.
and Kevin is excused. He did send me a message that he could not be here. He's out of state with work.
Very good. We move on to Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Said in notice we have presentations next.
Yeah, there's nothing there right for today.
Public comment. This is the opportunity for anyone to address the committee on any issue. Please observe the time limit of 3 minutes. While the committee encourages input from residents, it may not discuss or act on any issue that is not duly noticed on the agenda. I don't see anyone in the audience. Do we have anyone in line?
No one online and no one send me any emails.
All righty. No public comment. So we can move on to approving the minutes from October.
I motion to approve. Sounds like.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All righty, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. So moved. Alrighty, reports from the folks here. I do not have anything to report to public safety other than I've made a call out for topics for us to talk about to trustees and at village board meeting, and I have got nothing. I haven't got an email, I haven't got a call, I haven't got anything. So I'll bring it up at the next board meeting again as a reminder, but I got.
I did the same thing and I also talked to a couple personally. I also sent it out to my staff to think of public safety stuff. So hopefully we can get some work.
Do any members have any reports? Quiet on home front. All right, do we want a report from our first responders?
Please go ahead. I have Holly here today and she can kind of give an update.
Cross Plains EMS had 463 calls for service in 2023. In 2022, we had 518. Although it's lower, the acuity is higher and more serious calls. This Thursday, we have interviews for the new chief, and hopefully we have a new chief before the end of January.
Alrighty, Mr. Radke?
Yep. Like I already read the report. You might have already seen that in the packet that shot out already. So we ended out, the end of the year, 141 calls, record year again. Previous record was, 2022, so last year, 137 calls, 70 of those being in the village, 28 in the town of Cross Plains, 20 in the town of Berry, and 23 mutual aid calls. We had averaged out 8 responders per call, which is still pretty good with our crew of 34 members. So if anyone ever hears of anybody that might be interested in the fire department, send them my way for sure. We have empty lockers and all the training is covered and everything else. So the next page is kind of graphically calls. The left-hand column is with calls for last year. And the next, the 5-year average, that's with our mutual aid. Some people like to see it, take them out of it and just look at the taxpaying entities. I mean, it's between the 5-year and the last year, everything's pretty much the same. It was pretty cohesive, I guess. And then calls by type, this kind of graphically just a little bit differently, just versus me just handing out the list of all the calls and where they were. Just kind of, and everything's grouped into the 9 different types of groups set by National Fire Administration. You can see rescue, emergency medical services, incidents are our highest by far. That's a really broad grouping, so it's not just like every time the ambulance calls us to assist them, it's car accidents, it's car accident typically is an EMS type call, so those are always our highest, again, those are by percentage trickling down a little bit. We had a pretty high year about 3 years ago. Overall, other than that, nothing too crazy out of the ordinary, yeah, I think we, our own personally, I think we only had one structural fire last year, which is always good. Keep that number down, and yeah, nothing too crazy out of the ordinary, so,
Do you have an extra copy of that?
yeah.
I'll take it. Thanks.
Yeah, very good.
All right, so this year, I will be giving you'll see later on future agenda items, I'll be giving you guys a full, the annual report for the police department. And then after we approve it here and look at it, I will get it to the village board and they will look at it. We had over 3,000 calls for service last year, which is, the most we've ever had. When I took over here in 2020, they had 1,600 in comparison. So we've nearly doubled our call volume in less than 4 years. And obviously, we haven't doubled any kind of policing services or staff. And so they're handling that larger, almost double amount of calls for service. I predict that we'll continue to have more and more calls. Much like EMS, our calls are getting more serious, more constant. A lot of check welfare type cases, mental health cases. We've had to use force on a couple times just to affect arrests. Well, we've had to be part of a taser deployment recently. I mean, things are getting a little more assertive, and so staffing, training, experience, all that plays into it. But I will be giving a full report on that in the coming in the next meeting. The reason I wait till February is so our books close, finances and all of that stuff closes. Otherwise, I'd be ready to give it to you here in January, but we'll wait till February till the books close. The other thing is we're fully staffed now. Taylor has finished field training, and so he is actively working the night shift. So he's highly active and is doing a good job. Just like anything, he's going through a lot of learning curves and things like that. But we are fully staffed, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that that will continue, because that makes a world of difference as far as work goes. So. And also just so you know, so that 3,000 calls, we are staffed with 6 officers normally. But last year we did that with 4 because we were down 2. So that's a big testament to my staff to being able to handle that. A lot of extra hours. We used up all our overtime budget, which was $10,000. I think we ended up like 1,000 over on budget just for that. And I put in over 300 hours of extra hours just for coverage and handling calls and investigation. So it was on our back to get that done. And so it's a big testament to them that they're still okay, mentally okay after all of that. So we're hoping this year with the additional staff, it'll, at least lag back. Unfortunately, it's kind of a double-edged sword because I lost experience. So these new officers, it's still going to be tasking on the people that have more experience, because they're the ones that will have to really step up to help out the newer officers. But we're in a good position right now. So, and and I can't really complain because we're fully staffed, and our neighbors, Middleton, they're not. Fitchburg is not, and all the bigger agencies are not. So we've been lucky to be staffed, and people continue to apply, and we continue to get good candidates. So I don't know, luck and a little bit of recruiting and whatnot. So both of the last 2 hires are from Southwest Wisconsin, where I came from. So I did a lot of heavy recruiting there. And so we got 2 good applicants to come our way. So they still one of them lives in Middleton, but she just moved here closer. The other one still lives in Southwest Wisconsin, so he commutes a little bit to Dodgeville. So it's working out for them. Any questions? Yeah.
Okay. We can move on to our discussion topics. Number one is discussion and possible action regarding traffic deployments.
Okay, so I've not brought this up before, but I think with my fuller staff and the fact that they're younger staff likes to do traffic. It's just one of those things. And I mean, as you get older, you tend to not want to do so much traffic. It's just wears on you. This town requires traffic and needs people to do traffic. There's like 20,000 cars that hit Main Street every day, and it's heavily volume traffic. So we've been doing traffic deployment since I started here. I've just been sporadic about it. We used to do what's called a bots grant, which is kind of like the things that you see, like click it or ticket, booze and belts, and we were part of that grant program at one point. Somehow we fell off, but I think it had a lot to do with nobody wanted to sign up to do traffic enforcement as this is more of a sign up for the shift kind of deal, because that's all you're able to work when you're working a grant. I think we're gonna go back to that at some point. Middleton has the grant and they're part of that team. We would just kind of hook into them. But we've been doing traffic deployment since I started, because since I started here, I was getting a lot of complaints about traffic. Specifically people trying to cross on Main Street, people ignoring bicycles and just walkers and speeding and stop signs and those kind of things. So we've been doing this anyway on our own. And what I normally do is I schedule 3 officers, somebody will handle calls, and then we work a deployment. So we've had, like on Main Street, we'll have a decoy, somebody who will, one of our officers will dress in plain clothes and walk back and forth on Main Street, see if we can get people to stop and do some warnings and issue some citations. Depending on how bad it is. There was one time where we had Scott going through that and he had to like jump out of the way because people do ignore that. So we continue to work that. I just wanted to kind of give you that we are working them, and I just want your support, because I do believe that with a younger staff, I'll have more traffic enforcement. I've never once since I started here had somebody come to my office and complain about us being heavy-handed on traffic. Even though you'll see in the report, last year they had almost 600 traffic stops. People, they don't notice it. There's so many cars that people don't notice the traffic. We're heavily involved in the school zones and things like that. So we're all making traffic stops. I just want your support on traffic deployments, because you may hear about it. With younger staff, we're going to have more stops, and which is good, slows people down. One thing that they're not doing is issuing tons of citations. Again, that goes back to my older staff. They weren't writing a lot of tickets. I believe that will increase as we've had people doing 20-30 miles an hour over done on Church Street or Main Street. And so we've issued tickets. It's just, I think now with the younger staff, I'll probably maybe start seeing people come in and complaining about traffic enforcement and things like that, but I haven't as of yet. We've had quite a few OWIs throughout my time here, and they're not the first offenders. You're talking 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th offense drunk drivers. We've had multiple people hit things here in town, buildings and signs, and they were all under the influence. So it's happening. This is kind of a corridor to Madison and back and forth. So anyways, that's why I brought this to your attention, because I just need your support on it.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like one.
I will make the motion. That we have to support the traffic deployment for the next year.
Second.
A motion in a second.
Who seconded that? Ken. Tim, thank you.
Any discussion? Yes.
Only just support, because that's basic safety.
Mhm.
If I have to survive the Beltline every day on the way in and every day on the way out. It
Yeah,
just gets worse and worse, so.
yeah.
I guess my only question is, what is traffic deployment just? I mean,
So what we do is so if, for instance, like Matt's kind of in charge of this program, when he took over as sergeant, I made him kind of the head of that. So what he'll do is he'll decide, like, guys, we're gonna focus on speeding today.
This week.
And so, and it's not this week, it's like once,
okay.
once every 2 months or something. It's one day for like 4 hours. We're not, we don't have the staff to do that. So like, for instance, this next Monday, we have a department meeting. So we'll have a department meeting, training, and then they'll do a deployment because all my staff will be in. So they'll do a deployment from 6 to 8. And they decide, Matt will decide, officers kind of make suggestions. With the cold, they're probably not going to want to walk back and forth, on Main Street. But they'll work a deployment where they kind of work as a team to slow people down, take some enforcement, whatever that is, whether it's stop signs or during the summer months, we work over by the park a lot because you have 50
Kids.
people there and tons of kids. So those kind of things. So that's what the deployment is. It's just picking a topic, speeding, stop signs, something, and then strategically work that and try to, really saturate enforcement on during that time. Same thing as click it or ticket or booze and belts and those kind of things. We've just been doing our own without the grant. So at some point we'll do the grant, but right now we're just kind of working through this process. Okay. Yeah. First and second, I don't think you went all the way through it.
Well,
Looking
no,
for
that
all
was
eyes.
discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so is there any other discussion? Okay, then we can go to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Can't say yes to everything. Yeah, right.
Motion passes. All right, discussion and possible action regarding police staffing.
So there's no commitment for us since I started here to have 24-hour coverage. We try, we do the very best we can. It's on average, it's been about 80% of the time. During last year was a lot lower because didn't have the staff to do that. Now I think we'll get better. We'll get in the first year here when we were fully staffed, we were at about 90%. So we'll probably get back to that. But I just want you guys to know that basically I don't even give a day off unless I have at least 16 hours covered. So there's always 2 shifts covered. We might leave a night shift or a piece of the night shift and piece of the day shift open. But usually there's 2 shifts. Part of the issues with this is I've always kind of just said we're going to cover 16 hours. So don't ask me for a day off because we're going to have at least a minimum of 16-hour coverage. There has been, when we were down to 4, there was shifts that we had 8, and that was just, there was just no way to do it because I still had to give them their vacation and their time off. They absolutely needed it. And so we're going to continue to commit to the 16 hours. Right now, the biggest issue with that is, and this is something I do right away when I come in the morning, I check to see if during the time frame when we were gone, if there was any calls for services in town. If there's simple calls and because the deputies will respond in our absence, they will respond. So I look at the calls, and if it's something silly like a vehicle lockout or something I don't need to worry about, I don't. But if there's anything that we would enforcement wise, domestic violence, sexual assaults, Ira, who's the lieutenant in the West Precinct, he and I will communicate immediately and we will take over that investigation. We don't really, have them help us with the emergency handling, and they've made arrests and those kind of things. But as far as follow up and follow through, we take care of that because we're going to give people more of the, police community aspect. They're not just going to be a number for us. And then we can extend this resources and services. And it's important because we're the ones going to deal with them again. So even though that case is probably over, it's a good chance we're going to deal with them in the same situation. So we might as well get involved right away. So that's the way we've been handling it. I just want you guys to know that we are going to commit to the 16 hours as I did since I started. And just letting you know. So I'd like for you guys to support the 16-hour staffing. That way my staff understands that this is not only coming from me, but from the Public Safety Committee. And they don't have any issues with it, they're not complaining about it. I just think that way we're all on the same page.
You need a motion on them?
I would like one.
So I'll make a motion that the public safety committee supports and is committed to the idea that there's a minimum of 16 hours of police coverage in the village.
A motion and a second discussion.
Just
Yeah,
a question purely out of curiosity, has nothing important to do with, what is their day off rotation? What is
So they work a 6-3
It is
rotation,
6-3, okay.
yeah. And I think that they'll start, they're talking about trying to go to a different rotation through the union. I've just tasked them that if they're going to propose that to the union committee, that they come up with a feasible plan, because if they decide to, so there's been talks about going to 10-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts, like a lot of communities are, they have. They're nicer, like Darlington had a rotation that you worked Monday, Tuesday, off Wednesday, Thursday, work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and those are 12-hour shifts. And then you flip. And then you flip the second week. So the second week you only work Wednesday, Thursday. So you get every other weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. However, you could, that would create 24-hour coverage for sure, because you could do that with 4 people. With a 5th, we did it with 5 and part-time. So we definitely could do it here. It's just going to be an added cost, because 12-hour shifts are going to add more hours. So you will go from a 1950 year week or year hours to about 2080. So if you do the math,
So they're not at 2080 right now?
no, they're at 1950
Oh.
because of the 6-3 rotation. So if they go to that 2080, you think about it, it's, you know what, 130 extra hours per officer per, it's a significant bill. But it would probably fix some of the staffing issues for sure.
It doesn't require 8 officers to have 20.
No. No, you know, so, but it has to come to them because that's a big commitment, you know. I think if the village pushed it, I don't know if they would, but that would be a way to fix some of the coverages. I still think you couldn't say, hey, for sure, we're gonna be here 24 hours. I think that, because we, like Darlington can, because they have a pool of 10 part-timers. So when they put it out, someone scoops it up in a few seconds. We don't have that here. We're not competitive enough to lure Dane County deputies to come and work here when they can work. They have tons of overtime, so they're not going to come here and work for nothing, you know. So it wouldn't work completely, but it would definitely bring us very close to the 100%. The other thing is coverage. So if somebody takes a day off, now you're covering 12 hours rather than 8. So that's a 12-hour overtime shift, you know, so there's just a lot of play in there, but those are options. They are talking about it. So at some point, maybe that happens. I don't know. I'd be all for it. Because I worked the system and I could tell you if they succeed, they could take Wednesday and Thursday off of their Wednesday, Thursday, and they're getting a week off at a time, anytime they want. And every other weekend off, that's not very common in law enforcement. So the agencies. No.
Once they get going.
No, they usually get the complaint early on, like, I don't really, that's a long time until you start getting those. So you're off half the year. You work half the year, you're off half the year. That's pretty good. Plus then you get vacation, personal time. So you're off more than you're on. So you can afford to work some overtime because you're kind of off, you know, lots of times. So I mean, I would support it. I just it's gotta be their proposal. So I know they're talking about it. Okay, sorry.
No, you're good. That was the discussion part, so, I actually had a question.
Sure.
What if we wanted 24-hour coverage and you were organizing all of it? What would you say we would need for staff?
I think we could easily do it, or not easily do it. I think we could do it if we had, if we could add 2 positions. One position would still, it'd probably be very close, but if you ever had vacation or somebody got sick, I mean, the chances of 2 officers getting sick or hurt at the same time is not likely. But you never know. So if somebody got sick, you'd be back to the same boat, you know, like a long-term sickness. But if you had 2, You know, and that's, if you look at our thing here, that's what the board agreed on. So it'd be police officer, then I think someone else, and then another police officer. And I'd probably, instead of a police officer, just have like a lieutenant, so you'd have enough supervision for all the staff. Then I think you'd be fine.
Two additional full-time staff. Would that continue to keep the part-time staff we have right now too?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would continue. I mean, I'd be willing to give that up even because the part-time staff, it's hard. Like right now, the officer, we won't see him again for another 2 more weeks. So he's just in and out, and half the time you got to show him where everything is again because he hasn't been here. And then he's like, hey, what key opens? What, it's just that. I mean, the part-time programs are not that great unless you're using them on a continuous basis. The good thing is the officer we have hired, Jonathan, he has 25 years experience. He works in Lodi, and he's well versed in Dane County because he was part of the town of Madison Police Department. And so he's just looking to stay connected with all his buddies and friends, and got a lot of training experience. So he was a great hire.
Yeah.
And so I think for him, it's just keeping in contact. So if he works a shift or here or there, so every month he sends me kind of his availability, and then I plug him in where I can,
Okay,
and that's it.
okay.
So for now, the part-time, that will help, cover some coverage, but he's got a full-time commitment, so. Getting him, it'll be rolling the dice, so.
Any other discussion? Okay. I think we can go to vote. So all in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion approved.
Okay.
Next, discussion and possible action regarding special event permits and fees.
Okay, so this was something, I think it's coming to the village board at some point. We've been studying permits and fees and community events. I just want you guys to know that I personally don't support any kind of permit and fee. I think people get taxed, and if we can go to an event, there's 2 reasons why I wouldn't support, any kind of permits. And permits is fine, checking people out, but the fees, unless it's a very light, maybe administrative fee. I think there's been talk about, like paying for an officer to be somewhere. We're too small for that. And I, like, for instance, trout days. So we're highly active there, and we're there, but we can't commit to being there for the whole time, because if something happens, a domestic, we have to leave. And so even like we've had talks about, can we do traffic control? Well, we can't. During the Ironman, I always have, they used to not even participate. Our department didn't participate, which I thought was silly because it's an event coming right through town. But I usually have the officer stationed in a spot where if he left, you're not going to miss him very much. He'll come back when he comes back, because he's still got to respond to a call if something emergent comes in. Matter of fact, there was a fatal during that Ironman, and our officer was one of the first ones on scene. So, I mean, and he had to leave the post to take care of it. So I just don't, that's why I don't like the fees, because I think once you start putting money and fees to it, you're then committing staff to do it. And for the police, if we were bigger, like a Fitchburg, and you can just call someone in to work that event and not have to worry about calls, fine, but that's not us. And although the sheriff's department does respond, we can't sit there and twiddle our thumbs and watch traffic while we have a domestic going on in town. So I just wanted you to be aware of it. I don't know if it needs a motion. I just said it that way. I wanted you guys to hear my point and see what you guys thought. Maybe I'm completely off base.
Makes sense to me. I
Yeah,
mean, you're right, like, if I would think just like that, if we had to pay for services, you would expect then that officer would be there all the time, but it also makes sense that officer cannot be there all the time, so, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't, I don't want, I mean, we've been, one of the things you'll see is we've been to 50 events last year, comparison to 2019 when there was like 2. So, I mean, that is 100% different, and it's not costing us a whole lot. Yes, there's some overtime, but my staff loves that stuff. And you have to do the fun stuff too. Like, they can't just be responding to domestics and check people and, you know, making arrests, and they have to have some kind of fun, otherwise this isn't fun. And so every one of them likes to do something within the community, so we make sure that's available to them. It keeps their mind, you know, where it's more positive. So I think we're gonna continue to go to all the special events we get invited to. We even kind of hijack some of them and get in there somehow. You know, if we can do it, we do it. But I don't like the fees, because I think then if people are like, well, they said they were gonna be here and now they're not here, then it's counterproductive to community policing.
Well,
in my
that,
opinion.
there's not the staff to support it.
No.
So that's
So
logical.
I just want, like I said, I don't think we need a motion. I just want you to, I just worded it that way, just in case somebody did want to make a motion.
Do you have a question?
Yeah.
If there's like road closures or something for like, you know, the Memorial Day parade, is that something you guys do, or is that like
Public,
Kara's team?
yeah, Public Facilities does that, and they do it the day before, and I think they work with that event, so they might lay those things out and somebody else sections them off. I mean, there are some associated costs, so I'm not saying that there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I just,
You don't
me
support.
as the police department, I wouldn't support a hefty fee. Like, let's say Trout Day says, okay, well, we want an officer down
Yeah.
here. We're gonna give you $150 to cover that, and then all of a sudden I have to pull the officer. That wouldn't be very fair we're gonna get a complaint, and then, you know, and then something happens at Trout Days that we couldn't be at, you know, it's
Yep.
just, it's too much of a liability, and if we had more staff, I'd say knock your socks off, but we don't have that kind of staff to do that.
Makes sense. Okay,
All right.
moving on to future agenda items. The 2023 annual report.
Yep, I'll have that prepared for you, unless there's a hiccup somewhere, but I don't think so. And then the other thing that I have listed is the Village of Cross Plains Emergency Operation Plan. The emergency management team, will be meeting on Tuesday, next week. Yep, we're meeting next week and we're going over the plan. The plan requires us to go over it, every year. It's new because the old plan that we had was from 2003. So,
I think
I
it had
brought,
I think it had the old fire station address in it.
it did,
So-
and there were some deceased people in there too, so. I've updated that, it's ready to go, you guys saw it last year, you'll see it again, I'll probably bring it back, I'll probably couple these always together. So it makes sense, because we're gonna meet in January. Kind of go over it, there are personnel changes, not a whole lot of other changes. But there are some personnel changes and that we'll have to look at, and then I won't bring it to the village board anymore. They've approved the plan for it to just be updated as that's up to us, but I will bring it to you guys so you guys can see it. Then the only other thing, and this came up, so me and Fire EMS, we meet quarterly, the chiefs do. Just to stay in good contact, good relationship, which hasn't been always the case in Cross Plains, and I think that is really, really important that we're on the same page. Since if something really happens here, I'm not talking about the car crash or the, you know, alarms and ambulance calls. If we have a serious incident, we all three need to be in good working condition, because otherwise that's gonna transfer down to our staff that are the boots on the ground, and it's always gonna be an organized chaos, but we don't want it to be a chaos. You know, it's already gonna be bad. So we need to be on the same page. So we meet for a working lunch, and today we were talking, and one of the items that came up was, because of all the snow, you know, plowing, the village plowing. And they do a good job in our building. Every now and again, we feel like they focus maybe somewhere else and go, oh yeah, we gotta go get the village hall, especially on the weekends, because nobody's here, but we're here. So that's usually a reminder from us, like, hey, don't forget to plow us out, because we need to take out squad cars. But I've received multiple complaints from the community that some of them were on Facebook and social media about, you guys probably read them.
My wife.
Yeah, and they're some of them are pretty rough, but
So Jerry actually replied to a
yeah,
couple
well,
of them too, which is
I
atypical.
think.
I was surprised myself.
Yeah.
I think he-
I'm like,
I think he kind of felt compelled to do that, but
Mhm.
so we need to discuss whether, it's a village responsibility to make sure that that EMS and fire are plowed out. Because the last thing we want is, I mean, getting out, we probably gonna be able to get out, right? I think EMS was struggling this snowfall, but you're probably gonna be okay to get out, but what about slipping and falling and staff and
liability.
the liability, or I can, like, our squad cars are in a tight little box, and if they come out of there sliding, we're gonna smash a squad, and now they're involved in a crash, they can't really go. I mean, it just becomes a issue, so I don't know. I mean, we should discuss it and then make a recommendation or not make a recommendation to village board. I think there will be some pushback because they're districts. And so who should fund it, who should care for it? But I think we should come up at least with a response, one way or another, and have EMS and fire provide their opinion. So I think we'll add that to the agenda unless you have an opposition to it.
No, I don't. I never thought about who plows like the fire department's parking lot and stuff now?
The village does, or one of our, like, we've got, I mean, I don't know, I have half a dozen people, volunteers that follow the trucks, and they'll clean things out, yeah, it's.
And
Yeah, so
EMS
right now the
doesn't,
village does it.
right, and EMS doesn't have, like, I mean, there's the road, but village takes care of that anyways, they're
Driveway,
like,
road
the
rage.
driveway.
We have the
too.
apron and the sidewalks.
Right, okay.
So, I mean, there's really two questions. Should the village be plowing, these buildings that are within, but not only should they be plowing, but should it be the first thing they plow? Like, if we have if we have a crash, all three of us are gonna respond. So if we can't get out, that's a problem. So there should be at least an attempt to plow first the emergency services and then everything else. Even, like I said, even us, even though we're in the village hall, we get, sometimes it's like, hey, where are they? And they're plowing a street. And for instance, this Friday, they closed the building because non-essential workers went home, but we were still here. So, I mean, we need it plowed and to be able to get in and out. So I just think at the Public Safety Committee, that's a good, it's definitely a public safety thing. And so we should find an answer for it. So I know I don't want to give them more work, but if it makes sense for them to plow out the first responder entities and not only plow them, but be first on the list and at least the first pass, and keep us in mind. But I've received complaints that the fire departments have been filled with snow and they blow right past it, like they don't. And I'm like, and maybe they're just not thinking about it. I don't think it's like, oh, I'm gonna get them. I don't think it's that. But I think we need to make a concerted effort. So I will bring it to the next committee unless you have opposition to it or any of you. I will send out an email to Jerry, who, he's obviously it involves his department, and see, his response on it. I'll bring that response to you guys.
So at that point, then if we need to, we'll make a motion.
Yeah. I'll put it on an agenda. So next time we'll at least have 3 items, and if there's other things that you guys can think of, please let me know. That's it.
I was just thinking about the snow hydrants looking, I tried, there's the one.
I actually haven't spent a lot of time in the village since it's, I lived in the Tall Crossings, and I haven't done a whole lot of walking, driving around and looking, but, I've heard they were bad. There were a couple of them that got plowed in, I mean, whatever, we got 20 inches of snow and it's gonna happen. We considered shoveling hydrants for our meeting, for our training last Thursday, but that was between snowfalls. I'm like, we're just gonna work all night and then they're all gonna be filled up the next day, which I think would have been the case. So typically the village has been very good. I mean, there's a few of them on like village property that just get, I mean, there's a couple of them along Bourbon Road that are on like the hillside. They're just kind of designed terribly. I mean, it should be on the sidewalk side, right? But for the most part, they seem to be very good. Businesses that have contracted plowing, they're always really good because I'm guessing it's in their contracts. And a homeowner isn't really, doesn't get it done, a neighbor does it anyway. And I don't think anyone has ever been at it, saying get off my lawn because you're shoveling the hydrant that also protects your house, so. Yeah, I don't think I haven't heard any major complaints of this entire block, one's covered, the next one isn't.
So I've been meaning to email Jerry because the one on Evergreen is buried.
There's a couple
But-
buried. I
Evergreen,
think.
probably where there's no houses, right? Evergreen would be.
Yeah,
there's no
so
houses
it's on
that
the
Evergreen.
village, yeah,
Yeah.
that thing, but I mean, I think the
Yeah.
only thing that would get to would be the
Yeah.
school, which you know,
Right.
you still want.
And I know we've had larger,
Gotta need that.
snowfalls, in the past, they've gone around with, the toolcat or skid steer, some of that, and open them all up. But I think they've been skid steering and snow blowing the main artery roads. Like 5 days, it seems like.
Well, even
They've
today.
been hauling snow next to the fire station for
Yep.
ever, so.
I mean, it was even
Busy
today.
right now.
Yes.
Yeah, and I also wanna be, respectful of, they're getting some bad publicity, but they've been working nonstop. They have been doing
On
a
just
heck of
this
a job.
job, I mean, I'm pretty unprecedented. I think I read that we were 2 inches away from setting a record for most snow in 24 hours. So, I mean, doesn't happen every day.
No.
Trust me, I know.
Next
they-
week, they're gonna be dealing.
Yeah, and it's all gonna
So-
melt.
Yeah, that first major snowfall, I went to turn on my snow blower and it didn't work. So all that was me shoveling the driveway.
Oh, no. My neighbor across the street had the same problem, but I went over and buzzed her driveway quick.
My neighbors are they're a lot older, so they have people hired. So I did get some numbers, but everybody's like, we don't have time to come down and take care of anybody else. So anyway. Okay.
All right.
Anybody
Next.
have anything else they would like to add to the future agenda item? I don't think we have nothing major in February. It's pretty done.
Again, I haven't had anything come up from staff or residents or whatever, so.
We'll continue to ask, somebody will. I mean, you remember, Randy, we had a laundry list when I started. We just got through them, so
Right,
we may get them again.
last 3 years, there was a lot to do.
Yeah,
Looking for the next meeting,
looks like would be the 20th at 7.
Are we back to monthly?
we
Yeah.
wanna be,
I think we should if we have
With
items.
the- Yeah,
Yeah, if we don't, then the chair can always call it.
I'm good, especially with the annual report and stuff.
That'd be the 20th at 7.
Seven.
And if anybody has does it work the way I send you a text, email, and just kind of, Just to-
I can't, do you want to sell it to reply?
no, you don't need to, as long as, I guess, more reply if you can't come, because I'd hate to have us, 2 people show up. I assume that if you don't reply, especially be careful not to reply as a group, because we can't have a walking quorum. Even a text message is considered technically a meeting. So you don't need to respond. I usually don't reply to them. And when I send you a text, it's individuals, just in case you have questions or something. So that way we're kind of having our own conversation. Soon here, department heads, in our department, will be having separate cell phones. There's been a lot of push for open records and making sure that those things are maintained. So our department, since I've been here and even beyond in Darlington, we used our own cell phones, and usually the village or the city would pay for a portion of having that phone so we can communicate with the staff all the time. But there's been a big push as to making sure that cell phone conversations are kept separate, especially if there's writing included, like text messages and those kind of things. So instead of us getting a stipend for our phones, we're gonna get phones. So they're in order, and so Matt and I will have separate phone numbers. So once I get those, I will get them out to you guys. So you'll have my personal number for just, hey, how's it going? Merry Christmas type stuff. And then you'll have my phone number for work that'll, if it's a work related, so that way I can keep it separate. And believe it or not, we're getting, like, just today I had 4 record requests. So it's like nonstop. nonstop record. And it's not our video, it's not, I really predicted a community with new technology like video. I want to see that video, what happened. It's not that, it's reports, it's crashes, I mean, it's constant. It used to not be like that. You didn't, you just, okay, this happened and then you went on. No, it's kind of like, we've had a domestic and the very next day we get a request from an attorney or something. It's constant. It's just, so it's become a good thing I have, Marge, because she's really good at filling those requests and then getting them, and I get them approved quickly, so. Anyway,
good.
that's all I have.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion in a second. Discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.